bring in NBC's Sahil Kapoor on Capitol Hill. Also joining me, we have Julie Roginski, a Democratic strategist and author of Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. I'm glad to have you both here. Sahil, you first. I'd like you to explain how this new active versus passive debate is different than the ideological progressive versus moderate divide of years past.
Hey, Alex. Well, we are witnessing a new moment in the Democratic Party. This emerging fault line from within is not about ideology. It's not about age. It's not about diversity either. It's about breaking through in this cluttered media environment. It's about action, who understands this attention economy and can leverage their platforms to gain some attention and rally voters in this Trump era. Take a look at a list of some Democratic names who have been breaking through lately. They've been in the spotlight. What do they all have in common? There's no ideological or demographic through line here. It's that they've all found a way to pierce through this moment and rally voters. That matters because Democrats are out of power right now. One of the only tools they have is the ability to shape public opinion. It's a very different moment than 2016 or the primaries in Trump's first term, including the squad primaries, where the battle was about ideology, single payer or building on the ACA, a Green New Deal revolution or some wind and solar subsidies. This time, moderate and liberal Democrats, as well as some swing voters, are enraged at Trump's agenda and perceived lawlessness. They want to see effective opposition. What they don't want is Democrats who just sort of clock in and out, who vote and go home, who call it a day. And to that end, we're seeing primary challengers running against incumbents on slogans and themes like Democrats who actually do something and against do-nothing Democrats. This is now the coin of the realm within the party, at least for this moment. They're setting aside the other issues, the other divides within the party, and Democrats who fail to meet this test, I think, could be vulnerable to a challenge from within.
And look, Julie, to Sahil's point, Senators Van Hollen and Booker, for example, they're not progressive firebrands, and yet they are commanding attention by taking action, even if those actions don't have traditional tangible results. Is it as simple as showing the base you are fired up and you're not going to play it safe by just fading into the background?
That's exactly right. Look, I don't know, aside from a couple of leaders in the House and the Senate, unfortunately, they are the leaders of the Democratic Party right now, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who want to play dead. Look, I don't care where you are in the ideological spectrum of the Democratic Party. People are hungering for pushback to the lawlessness, to the authoritarianism, to the dictatorship that is creeping upon us, if not already here. There is a new outrage, not just every day, but every single moment, where every part of our republic is being dismantled. In the last 90 days, the country is no longer recognizable for what it was for the last 249 years. If we cannot have leaders in the Democratic Party who stand up and do everything in their power to bring attention to that, then I'm not really sure what they're doing here, because they're in the minority. There's not much tangibly they can do on legislation. What they can do is bring attention to what is happening. And for the life of me, I don't understand why every single Democrat in both the House and the Senate right now is not following suit with Cory Booker and Senator Van Hollen and Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders, and doing what they can to educate the American people who are outraged at the destruction of this republic about what's happening right now.
It may have something to do with, in the not too distant past, voters wanted their representatives to try to work across the aisle and get things done. But, you know, these people you've named, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and others, they are demonstrating a different approach. They have brought out more than 200,000 people, those two specifically, on their Fighting Oligarchy tour. The New York Times writes that even as some top Democrats tack to the center to try to find common ground with the emboldened Republican president, Mr. Sanders and Ms. Ocasio-Cortez dismiss the notion of any concessions. Is that where more and more voters are now, dismissive of any concessions?
Listen, I have been a Democratic consultant for 30 years. I have seen the same focus groups that I'm sure Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are looking at, where voters are saying, yes, we want common ground, we want to work together. What they don't want, however, if you dig deeper into those focus groups, is to hear people say we want common ground with a dictator. We want common ground in the dismantling of our republic. You cannot work with somebody who does not want to work with you. You can only find common ground if both parties want to work together. We have a president who has no interest in working with Democrats. We have a president who has no interest in abiding by any of the norms that has made this country the country that it has been for nearly 250 years. And since he does not want to do that, since he is dismantling everything that Americans have held dear about this republic for nearly 250 years, there is absolutely no common ground you could find with a dictator like this, any more than Ukraine can find common ground with Vladimir Putin. And so ultimately, I think Democrats need to understand at the highest levels that what they see in focus groups abstractly is not at all what is happening in reality. And any common ground you could find would have to be found with somebody who does not want compromise, but capitulation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Democrats feel that they're sometimes getting from Chuck Schumer, especially when he votes for something like the continuing resolution. It's capitulation, it's not common ground.
And this was touched on, Sahil, but the change is also having an effect on primary races, which could impact Democrats' ability to win back the House and Senate next year. So if you are a vulnerable Democrat, what do you do?
Yeah, Alex, I think the first lesson there is your vote card alone won't save you. If you're a vulnerable Democrat who simply votes with the progressive wing of the party or who votes a certain way, that might have been enough once upon a time to get through. I think now it's a different kind of moment. You have to convince your voters that you are mounting effective opposition. That doesn't mean, posting on social media for a few hundred or a few thousand people. It means going the extra mile like Cory Booker recently did, even if it's somewhat symbolic, or like Chris Van Hollen did, which is certainly more than symbolic. Now, the theme you just touched on, Alex, it's so important because for pretty much the entirety of my 15 years covering Congress and covering politics, polls had showed that Democratic voters overwhelmingly wanted their party to compromise rather than hold the line. You can phrase this question many different ways, but at the end of the day, they preferred compromise and common ground. This year, for the first time ever that I've seen it, at least in these 15 years, Democratic voters are saying they want their members to hold the line, even if it means less gets done. That is a massive sea change. That's a difference, from Trump's first term. And I think it's one of the through lines here that we're seeing in this new moment for Democrats.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, Sahil, Julie, good to see you both. Thank you much. Still to come after